Thank you for staying with us. This is Good Morning Kenya. My name is Vivian Ndegwa, and right now we get to talk about security matters. Our topic of conversation is countering emerging security threats. Mark you, we are marking exactly 5 years since the Dusit D2 attack, terrorism attack that happened back in the year 2019, where we lost more than 20 people. So we're trying to look at where we are exactly matters security as a country and the East African community in general. Joining me for that conversation is one Mr. Jackson Mbuthia. He is SGA Security Group Chief Commercial Officer. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Vivian.
How are you doing this morning?
Very well, thank you.
All right. So if we can just start by probably just you telling us a bit about SGA Security. What are you all about?
Thank you. SGA Security is a private security company that operates in Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania. We are actually one of the oldest security companies. I've been established in 1969. We celebrated 55 years being in business last year. We provide the full array of security services, starting with what everyone sees, the private security officer, the guards, but we also offer more specialized services, cash in transit and movement of valuables, and we also provide technical security solutions, CCTV, access control systems, fleet management, and so on.
So that's generally what SGA Security is all about. Now, as I've mentioned, it's exactly 5 years. Actually, today's the 15th. The attack at the 2019 attack at Dusit D2 happened on the 16th to 15th to the 16th, right? So it's exactly 5 years since we had that attack. Maybe just from your point of view, what's the state, of the country's counterterrorism efforts this far?
Is it 5 or 6?
5, exactly 5.
2019 to 2025. I think we're 6.
No, that's oh, 2025. Okay, yeah, okay. Almost, yeah, 6 actually. Yeah.
I think generally we've not seen another significant terrorist incident since 2019, and I think it's testament to the good work that the government security agencies have put in. I think counterterrorism delves a lot on, the framework around which the intelligence services work. So when their efforts are robust and diligent, then you see a reduction in terrorist threats. I think the country, as it is right now, from a terrorism perspective, is in fairly good standing.
Yeah. Okay. So, what are some of the threats to national security that you can mention?
Obviously, if you look at the terrorist space, Al-Shabaab is, I think, what normally hurts this parts of the continent. Previously, I think the attacks that happened, in fact, if I recall, that the justification for the Dusit attack was, I think, the involvement of the Kenya government in Somalia, and I think also related to that was the issues around Judaism, I think it was, and the recognition of, I think, Jerusalem as the
capital.
The capital of Israel. So there's a lot of geopolitics that plays in that space, and obviously then the involvement of our own government in those. Our neighbors and what's going on around us, Somalia, although I think now trying to get into a more organized state. The state of our borders, porous borders allow for people to just come in through unstructured or illegal means, and then they find themselves, or we find ourselves having people in our midst that can engage in nefarious activity. Yeah. Maybe
just what are some of the lessons to be learned, from that time?
If you look at Dusit, and especially how the entire attack was structured, it speaks to us having to have a more robust risk assessment framework that allows us to identify where our vulnerabilities are, and then to put in mitigants to address those vulnerabilities. The perpetrators of the Dusit attack had for quite some time scouted around Dusit. In fact, I believe, if I recall correctly, they had even sought housing and residence around the Dusit facility to allow them to have easy access and to monitor what was going on. There's an issue around the controls. Access into the facility was not as robust as it is today, and maybe we can speak to some of those systems that you can put in place. There is the entire construct of your security framework, the security guards themselves. I think since Westgate, since Dusit, there's been a lot more deliberate effort applied to having the private security officers trained on counterterrorism and how to possibly identify potential threats from a terrorism perspective. So there has been significant learning and steps taken to mitigate those vulnerabilities, and I think collectively as a nation, the private security players, the national security agencies, and the public, I think we've come together to try and put a framework that significantly reduces the risk of another terrorist attack.
And even as we talk about that, maybe what are some of the new tactics you feel are being employed by criminals that we can mention, and how to counter that in terms of just even techniques, just the tactics that they're employing now?
One thing that we can't take for granted is technology has morphed, and things have changed. I mean, if you look at what technology is able to do today versus what we had available several years ago, 6 years ago, 10 years ago. There's been significant advancements in technology, and that can work both positively and negatively. So if you look at, for instance, cyber attacks today are a lot more common and prevalent than they were many years ago. With the advent of technology, we're all now using computers, the internet, a lot more. It's a part of our day-to-day life. We can't run away from it. And so what we now have is, cyber terrorism or cyber security attacks coming in with those perpetrators trying to, collect our personal data, sensitive information, our bank account, have access to our bank accounts, have access to our business information, and use that against the organization or against the individual to try and profit from it. So much as there's been advancements in technology to improve security, there's also people who are, on the negative side of that, who've come in and are wanting to use the same technology to profit negatively from the use of that same technology.
How do you work on countering some of that?
So I think from a cybersecurity perspective, when you look at the different, sort of like channels through which those threats can be realized, malware, I think, is one that is quite prevalent, where either through the introduction of, through this portable devices, flash disks, computer links that you can then click on that install an application onto your computer. We know about ransomware, where someone actually comes and collects or basically encrypts your entire company data and then demands ransom for them to give you to offer the decryption keys. So there is software, antivirus software is an easy one that it picks up or detects potential malware viruses being introduced into your network. So it's important to invest in a good antivirus platform. I think education also of users and the public is also important. There is, I think normally they use social engineering, for example, to get you to click on a link, targeting you. You're either looking for something or your particular interest, and so they sort of push information towards that causes you to click on that link that then exposes either your network or your information to the perpetrators. So education is important, having the right antivirus software and other controls that you can have in firewalls and segregation of networks is an important setup you can have to reduce those risks and those threats. Yeah.
Okay, and on that note, we take a short break. We'll be back to continue with this conversation in just a moment. Welcome back, and thank you for staying with us. In case you're just joining us, we are having a conversation on countering emerging security threats. And with me is Mr. Jackson Budia, who is the SGA Security Group Chief Commercial Officer. Now, how well can we ensure an effective collaboration between members of the public and security bodies to just ensure that we are having a seamless way of just the engagement between the public and the security bodies?
Thank you, Vin. In terms of collaboration, those efforts have, especially in the recent years, I think are coming to fruition. We've seen a lot more desire from the government security agencies, the National Police Service, the intelligence agencies to collaborate with private security players such as SGA and some of the other private security companies, and the public as well. So the setup of whistleblower accounts to allow for the dissemination of for the security agents to actually get information about what is heard on the ground. One of the things we find in the private security sector is that with our private security officers, they are more accommodated within the general public space than even a police officer. It's easy to take, or a private security officer is seen, or guard is seen as one of us at our level. So information very easily gets to those private security officers. Also, given their numbers, we have upwards of over 1 million private security officers operating in Kenya, and I think a fraction, a tenth of that is our police force. So in terms of boots on ground and having points that can actually collect this information, the private security setup or sector is one that even the government has seen they should co-opt into their information gathering and crime prevention, because then it's a lot more tentacles through which they can collect information, and it's also like I said, it's a resource pool that is not felt or seen as a threat by the general public, and so it's very easy for them to collect information and pass that on to the security agencies. So that collaboration is happening, and I think it's encouraged that it continues to happen going forward. Yeah.
So it's that relationship is really important. We can't just put a blind eye to when maybe members of the public don't feel like they trust maybe the police or security agencies here and there. It's important for us to have that correlation between the security bodies and members of the public. As you said, it's good for even getting information when it comes to intelligence and all that. Yes,
the keyword actually that you mentioned there is trust. The public needs to feel that they have confidence and actually trust that the information that they actually channel through to the security agencies will be acted on and not misused. And as a private security player, what we actually come in to do is try to develop that trust with our clients as well, so that they feel that we are on their side and we're there not necessarily to earn a buck, but actually to be a part of their operation and help them in mitigating the risks and vulnerabilities that they face as an organization, as a company, or as an individual, to make them feel safer and actually reduce any risks that they may have from a security perspective. Yeah.
All right, so we're talking about countering emerging security threats. Maybe if you can just touch on some of the emerging security threats in Kenya and East African community in general.
I think in Kenya, one of I can say what we face every day would be probably just theft and vandalism. We do not have so much instances. We're sitting here on account of the anniversary of Dusit, but like we've seen in the last 5-6 years, terrorism has not been, we've not had that many incidences. But theft, vandalism is something that I think plagues every one of us, both commercial clients or corporates and individuals in our homes. In terms of coming up with a framework to sort of like address those threats, we always say that your security starts from the perimeter coming in. So whether it be a business or even just a home, you want to be able to, one, deter any potential attack. The burglars or thieves or those who want to perpetrate these sort of like nefarious activities, they want to be in and out as quickly as possible. So if they come and find, if my house has burglar proofing, it has electric fence, and yours doesn't, you're then an easier target, a softer target than I am. So we begin to build the mitigants and right from the perimeter. So you want to try and, one, deter the threat altogether. And if you can't, then at least be able to detect it. So when we now look at the advancements in security systems and equipment that's come in, so electric fence, for instance, is a very simple way to begin to deter a threat, but also in the event of a thief or a burglar choosing to still come through, when they trigger the electric fence, then they will, or when they touch the electric fence, there'll be an alarm. Okay, so that's detection. Either a siren goes off or it sends a signal through to a control room, for instance, of a private security company that offers alarm response services. And so the action can then begin. So you deter. If you can't deter, then you want to detect. And then what follows immediately after detection is now the response. So that will either take the form of either people within the facility actually taking action against the threat. You can pick up the phone and call the police. You can press a panic button, for instance, that would then elicit the response of a private security company. You can shout and draw the attention of the public. So it's around that framework that we built all systems. So there is physical security elements, the physical guard himself that is typically stationed at an assignment during the day and through the night. A lot of the response actually requires human intervention. So much as we've embraced and introduced technology to support security mitigation, you still require then a decision and an action to be taken, and normally that falls on a human being. The guard on site, the police, or the mobile response that will then come in response to an alarm activation. So normally it's a complement of both physical security and electronic security. Electronic security, the easiest one to deploy is actually lighting. People take for granted how much light actually does in terms of reducing or mitigating potential threat, especially theft. Thieves do not want to be seen coming. They want to operate in the shadows, under the cover of darkness. So if you have adequate lighting around your facility, your home or your business, that in itself is quite a significant mitigant. Then beyond that now is surveillance systems. And nowadays, the CCTV systems and where they are today, closed circuit television, the advancements actually have been significant. The equipment has gotten cheaper, but the functionality has improved significantly. So you now have cameras that can be configured to just detect human motion. And so they will be recording activity, but when there is a human who either jumps over the fence or crosses a particular line, then that triggers an alarm. And so it makes it much easier to surveil an area and also to identify potential threat. beyond that, then you also go and have intrusion detection systems. So once there's been an intrusion, a door has been broken, a window has been broken, or someone has come into a particular space, an intrusion detection system will tell you that there is unwarranted or unauthorized access into an area. That will normally trigger an alarm, which should terminate at a security company's control room, and they will then send their mobile response team. At this point, I also want to say it's important that, and where technology has gotten to today, that we don't just look at systems that provide security whilst in the office or at our homes, but can also extend that coverage beyond the office, away from your home or away from your office. So we have mobile panic buttons now, where everyone now has a mobile device. If you have faced with a security issue, you can actually go in and activate a panic button, and the security company would actually come to your response or to your aid, wherever you are, even whilst you're away from home and whilst you're away from your office. So having a system and working with a partner that can give you a solution that covers you whilst you're within your office premises or your home, but also whilst you're also out and about, going about your normal day-to-day activities, is also quite important.
Now, some of these alarm activations that you've just mentioned may feel a bit far-fetched for some people, you know, so probably just how available are they? Because when you're talking about them, the panic buttons and so on, for some people this feels a bit foreign, because you know, considering maybe the financial situation, or even where they may, you know, people in the rural areas and so on and so forth. So just what would you say concerning that? So,
and it's a very valid question and valid point, because it's always been thought that having an alarm system is a preserve of the elite.
Yeah.
And in fact, if you look at Kenya, for instance, and SGA being a regional player, has the benefit of also seeing what happens in Uganda and Tanzania. So actually, Kenya has, in as far as embracing electronic security, the alarm system, CCTV that we're discussing, is actually quite far ahead of Uganda and Tanzania. Yet the uptake within Kenya is actually what you've said, that it's felt it was a preserve of the elite. So you'll find that a lot of the clients that private security companies have who offer alarm response services have on their books center around the opulent neighborhoods, Karen, Runda, Muthaiga, Lavington. Yet, if you look at where technology has come today, and I'll speak maybe just briefly about SGA, we actually now package these solutions in a manner that is actually very cost effective, where the consumer is actually not even having to procure the equipment. They subscribe for the system, so that for the same amount as what you'd be paying for DSTV or for your home Wi-Fi setup, you can actually have a pretty robust home security solution that covers you, again, whilst you're at home, but also away from home. So it's important to have the right partner. We have operations all over Kenya, so when it comes to alarm response, it's important that you actually have an alarm system that is connected to a security company that can respond, because otherwise, I call it a scarecrow. Even the thieves know that if you have an alarm system that is not connected to an alarm response company, if they do come and attempt to intrude your premises and the siren does go off, they know nobody is coming. So all they have to do is just wait it out, 2-3 minutes, the siren will go silent, and they continue with the activity. So it's important to actually partner with a security company that actually does offer response services, so that at that point of need, when there is an intrusion, whether it be your business or it be your home, and the alarm is triggered, that signal does report to a private security company that will then send a response team to come. And the thief doesn't want to continue with their act or deed if they know there is someone actually coming seeking to apprehend them. So it's a very good deterrent if their intrusion detection system actually does terminate at a security company's control room that is able to offer alarm response services, such as SGA.
I hear you on that. Now I want us to look at security at institutions level, and at institutions I'm looking at schools. You know, we unfortunately had the attack, Garissa attack, back in I think 2015, whereby we lost so many lives, more than 140 I believe. So maybe what are the best strategies to put in place to secure such institutions?
Schools and even shopping malls, commercial buildings actually, I would say are in the same cluster, because you have a large number of people in that area. So it's very easy to come up with for example, an evacuation plan for your home when it's just you and your nuclear family. It's a few people. So when you introduce schools or areas that have a large population coming in and out of them, then the framework needs to be a bit more robust and comprehensive. I've seen a move recently by the Ministry of Education to actually insist that schools have surveillance systems for the dormitories or within the school precincts, that they have fire suppression equipment, even if it's just limited to fire extinguishers and not a full blown fire suppression system, to have exit doors. So when you have a security incident, what you're looking to have is to remove, the people within that space as quickly as possible. So having, like I said, correctly demarcated escape doors that are not barricaded, that can actually be used in the event of that emergency. Having, again, the detection systems. So smoke detection, for instance, smoke detectors will tell you that there is a fire or there is smoke in a particular area, and that should then trigger the alarm. But around all that should be training. The students, the general public need to be trained and made aware of how to react or how to respond to, for instance, a fire alarm going off. We have seen firsthand very many instances where in the absence of training, the fire alarm goes off and students continue with their lessons. Employees in a building continue working, or they've been made aware that there is, when you hear the fire alarm, you should evacuate, but they're not in a hurry. You see them beginning to, collect their personal belongings. They're even shutting down their computer and waiting for it to shut down before they leave. Emergencies require fast evacuation so that the risk to loss of life is significantly reduced. So training is very important, and it needs to be, you need to continue reinforcing that training. So it's not, we trained last year, or we trained 2 years ago when we put in the fire extinguishers. It needs to be a continuous engagement with the students, with employees, even with your own people at home, so that it's constantly fresh in their minds what they need to do in the event of a security emergency. Yeah.
Okay, so maybe what are some of the trends shaping the security landscape in general in not just Kenya but East Africa at large?
So what we've actually seen in Kenya is a move towards regulating and reorganizing, especially the private security sector, the guards especially. We have, like I said, in Kenya, upwards of 1 million security officers. It's similar numbers in Uganda and in Tanzania. But what has lacked is a framework for regulation of the sector, so that you actually create a baseline and consistency in terms of what these private security officers are actually able to offer, and how they're able to contribute positively towards improving the general security of the country. Like I've said, the private security officers far outnumber the government security agencies, the police force typically. So like I said, it's a good pool, a good resource pool for collecting of security information. But what has been lacking is a lack of a proper framework and foundation for regulation of the security companies and players. So in Kenya we have the Private Security Regulatory Authority, PSRA, that was trying to build a framework around regulation of the private security sector. There's been a push to standardize minimum wage, because it's very easy to compromise a guard if they're earning peanuts. Even going back to the Dusit incident, if the person is coming to scout, planning to attack an establishment, and the person who's guarding that establishment is on a salary of 7,000, 8,000 shillings a month. That terrorist will come in and offer them 10,000 shillings and tell them, yeah, just look the other way, I want to walk around. The guard will be compromised. So it's important to have to pay a fair wage for the private security officers. There's actually in law, it stipulates what that wage should be, and so it's important that all the players actually come to that level, whatever level is agreed. At least the minimum wage should be complied with, so that then these individuals or these private security officers are actually able to, do their job without feeling or it being so easy to compromise them. Important is also the training element. So a curriculum has been developed in Kenya, in Uganda and Tanzania. I think those are trying to look at a framework around regulation in the private security sector. A standardized curriculum ensures that everybody who's playing in the private security sector is at the same level. That what we've discussed around counterterrorism, understanding how to identify and how to deal with potential terrorist threats, the escalation of that information, that of the 1 million guards we have in Kenya, that they're all on the same page and understand, at least the training is considered across board, and so they all know what to look out for and how to execute on their role. So regulation is one of the areas that I think across the East African community, the security government and the private security players, something they've been looking at to try and raise that bar and standardize the service offering.
Yeah.
The other area, if I proceed, is around the embracing of technology. So whereas before, said the CCTV surveillance systems, access control systems, were the preserve of top corporates, and even SMEs were not bothered with having this technology protect their businesses. We're now seeing all of that happening, and people have embraced technology and are using it properly. Nowadays, there's no building you walk into in Kenya, in Uganda, in Tanzania that doesn't have the walk-through metal detector. Okay, so I think this is a response of the public and the population in general to having a threat come out, and there is significant impact, and then the people now choosing to respond to that threat. And the easiest way actually is to embrace, is through embracing technology.
Yeah. What's the importance of ensuring that the entire region is secure?
It's very important because, like I said, the people who are out to perform this attacks or to perpetrate theft, they're looking for low-hanging fruits or soft targets. If collectively, Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania, we actually go in and have a robust framework around which security information is disseminated. So if we have a threat in Kenya, that the same information can be available in Uganda and in Tanzania. What then happens is that the potential perpetrator feels that there's no room for me here, because if I try it in Kenya and I fail, and if I go to Uganda, they already know who I am, and the same in Tanzania, then you then remove those potential risks from around the area. The sharing of information as well. The good thing about this electronic security today is that it's all networked. So you can actually have a security control room, for instance, that is centralized, that covers your operations in Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania. So it's actually possible today, through technology, to mitigate risk through employment of network security systems, because then you can have, for example, if I was a perpetrator of, I'm a thief, and you have my image captured in Kenya, it's very easy to disseminate that information to Uganda, a system in Uganda and in Tanzania, and should I, go into Uganda, the system knows that this is actually already a person of interest. Okay? So the technology, because it is now networked, makes it easier to disseminate information and to then also provide a framework across the entire region, not just in siloed countries or in siloed organizations. Yeah.
Okay, and as we almost come to a conclusion of this conversation, maybe are there policies in place, or what policies do you feel should be put in place in order to just ensure, you know, all these things that you're talking about are looked into?
Obviously, policy is typically driven by government. I've spoken about the desire to have regulation of the private security sector, which is the largest provider of security outside of what the national or security agencies actually do. One of the challenges we face is we have, for instance, even the surveillance equipment we're talking about, it needs to be of a certain quality, of a certain standard. Without government putting in place, and this is through the Kenya Bureau of Standards, through the regulatory body that also has it's within their remit and purview to actually regulate providers of CCTV, access control, alarm services. We don't want cheap equipment coming in that then doesn't serve its purpose, or comes in. We spoke about cybersecurity, equipment that is sourced from suspect locations, that is not well configured, that opens up, for instance, access to a back door. So you can have a CCTV system on your network, but it's potentially a loophole for a hacker to use that CCTV system to gain access to your network. So the policy side be driven by government, but also with the input and contribution of the private security players to make sure that as there's a standard is set that prescribes what the bare minimum requirements would be for electronic security. I've spoken about the physical security as well, the actual guard themselves, that we have a curriculum that is enforced across the entire industry so that our private security officers all are reading from the same script and have that basic minimum level of training to make it possible for them to actually execute their roles. Yeah.
All right. You've mentioned that surveillance at the moment, or compared to back in the days, is clearly heightened right now, you know. But also, what measures are in place to protect citizens' privacy and also to try and avoid surveillance abuse, because it can be used both ways?
True, and I think that's a very delicate topic because the information that is available today, actually, which is collected today, is a lot more than previously happened. If you walk into pretty much any commercial setup, a shopping mall, we've said schools, hospitals, even our own commercial buildings, our own homes today, there's probably a CCTV camera looking at you and picks up your movement and your activity whilst on that particular premise. The deployment of this surveillance equipment, and I think more importantly how the data is actually handled, is, I think now there is laws around data protection that are coming into place. It's important that every organization comes to understand what that law actually stipulates, how the data is actually handled. We've moved away as a company, for instance, from having the manual occurrence books. We had this exercise where every time you walk into a building, there's a guard who takes your details, wants to know what your name is, your mobile number, your ID number, and control of that information, where that book actually goes after that, was suspect. So now we embrace technology and actually have those as online digital records and the digital record you have control of. So you know that it's being stored in a particular server somewhere, and the access to that server is restricted. So it all goes around building a framework to be compliant with the GDPR, the data privacy and protection laws and policies, so that as an organization or as consumers of technology, you don't find ourselves exposed to leaking personal information and having that information then used in a negative way that would then come back and have certain legal ramifications for the originator or holder of that initial data. Yeah.
All right, thank you so much for joining us for this conversation. I will allow you to give us your final remarks.
Thank you, Ren, and thank you for having me on the show. I think it's like we've said, physical security, cybersecurity, security is the preserve of every individual, and I think we all need to take personal accountability for our own security. In our workplace, as we go around in our social places, but also in our homes, it's important that we don't leave it to chance. We actually make very deliberate efforts to safeguard ourselves, our businesses, our families, and that should be done through partnering with professional private security providers, and then also through the collaboration with the national security agencies.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay.
This is where we end this conversation. Thank you so much to each and every one of you who has been tuned in. We do this again tomorrow, same time and place. My name is Vivian Ndegwa. Do enjoy the rest of your viewing.